Look in the mirror. What do you see? You see a human? You probably think that this is just the way it has always been. One planet, one dominant species, us, Homo sapiens. But what if I told you that for 99% of human history, Earth looked a lot more like a fantasy movie? If you went back in time just 100,000 years ago, you wouldn't just find one type of human. You would find a crowded, terrifying, and fascinating world where at least 8 to 9 entirely different human species shared this planet at the exact same time. There were giants. There were literal dwarfs. There were humans who were far stronger than us, and humans who could survive in climates that would freeze us to death in an hour. And yet today, you can travel from New York to Tokyo, from the freezing Arctic to the boiling Sahara, and you will only find one species of human us. So, what happened? Where did they all go? Did they just die off naturally? Or is the truth much darker? Did we murder them? To solve the greatest murder mystery in the history of our planet, we first have to meet the victims. Imagine Earth 100,000 years ago as a massive game of survival. In Africa, you had us, Homo sapiens. We were relatively weak, tall, and adapted to the heat. But if you walked out of Africa and went to Asia, you would run into the Denisovans. We still know very little about them, but we know they were massive, adapted to extreme high altitudes, and dominated the East. If you sailed down to the islands of Indonesia, you would find something out of a fairy tale, Homo floresiensis. Scientists literally call them the hobbits. Because they lived on a small island with limited food, evolution shrank them down to just over 3 feet tall. They hunted giant rats and miniature elephants. They were small, but they were smart, using stone tools to survive in a jungle filled with giant Komodo dragons. There was Homo luzonensis in the Philippines, Homo naledi in South African caves, and the ancient survivors, Homo erectus, who had been walking the earth for nearly 2 million years. But our biggest rivals, the ones who make this mystery so terrifying, were waiting for us in Europe, the Neanderthals. If you think Neanderthals were just dumb cavemen dragging clubs, you have been lied to. Neanderthals were the ultimate survival machines. They evolved in the freezing temperatures of Ice Age Europe. They were shorter, incredibly stocky, and packed with pure explosive muscle. If a modern professional bodybuilder got into a fight with an average Neanderthal, the Neanderthal would destroy them in seconds. But here's the fact that scientists don't talk about enough. Neanderthals had bigger brains than we do. They weren't stupid animals. They buried their dead with flowers. They made complex glue out of tree bark using controlled fire. They crafted jewelry, painted on cave walls, and took care of their sick and elderly. So, let's look at the facts. They were stronger than us. They had larger brains than us. They were perfectly adapted to the cold, while we were just skinny apes from the hot African savanna. By the rules of evolution, the Neanderthals should be the ones sitting in front of a screen watching this video, and we should be the extinct fossils in a museum. But 70,000 years ago, Homo sapiens left Africa, and everywhere we went, the other human species vanished. In the Middle East, the Neanderthals disappeared. In Europe, they went extinct. In Asia, the Denisovans vanished. In Indonesia, the hobbits faded into the dirt. Did we kill them? Theory number 1 is the darkest reality. World War Zero. Homo sapiens are not a peaceful species. You just have to look at our modern history, full of wars, empires, and genocide, to know what happens when two groups of humans want the same piece of land. When Homo sapiens entered Europe, we were hungry. We hunted the same deer, gathered the same fruits, and wanted to live in the exact same caves as the Neanderthals. The Earth simply wasn't big enough for two apex predators. Because we were weaker, we didn't fight them in hand-to-hand combat. We invented long-range weapons. While a Neanderthal had to run up and stab a mammoth, putting themselves in extreme danger, we invented the throwing spear, and later, the bow and arrow. We could hunt from a distance. We could fight from a distance. Over thousands of years of violent clashes over resources, the stronger, larger species was slowly pushed into the worst, coldest corners of the Earth, where they simply starved to death. We were the ultimate invasive species. But archaeology shows that it wasn't all just violence, which brings us to theory number 2, the secret assimilation. When humans and Neanderthals met in the wild, they didn't just throw spears at each other. Sometimes they fell in love. When scientists finally mapped the Neanderthal genome in 2010, they discovered something that shocked the world. The Neanderthals never truly went extinct. If you are of European or Asian descent, roughly 1 to 2% of your DNA comes directly from Neanderthals. In fact, if you take all the Neanderthal DNA scattered across the billions of humans alive right now, about 20% of the entire Neanderthal genome is still walking the Earth today, inside of us. We didn't just wipe them them out with weapons. We wiped them out by absorbing them. We interbred with them until their distinct physical traits faded away into our massive population. You might have your mother's eyes, but you have a Neanderthal's immune system. But even with better weapons and a bit of ancient romance, how did we actually conquer the entire globe? What was our ultimate superpower? Our superpower wasn't our muscles, and it wasn't even our tools. It was our imagination. Evolutionary historians, like Yuval Noah Harari, point out a massive flaw in how Neanderthals lived. Neanderthals lived in small groups of maybe 30 to 50 people. If a group got too big, it fell apart because they didn't know how to trust strangers. You only trusted the people you could see every day. But Homo sapiens experienced something called the cognitive revolution. Our brains developed the unique ability to create and believe in fiction. We could tell stories about things that didn't physically exist. We could invent invisible gods, spirits of the forest, and myths about our ancestors. Why does this matter for survival? Because if two sapiens who had never met each other both believed in the same ancient bird spirit, they instantly trusted each other. They were brothers. Because of this ability to invent shared stories, Homo sapiens could organize in groups of 500, 1,000, or even 10,000 people. We built massive trade networks. If a sapiens tribe ran out of food, they could trade shells and tools with the neighboring tribe because they shared the same culture. The Neanderthals never stood a chance. A sapiens might lose a one-on-one fight with a Neanderthal, but a group of 50 Neanderthals could never, ever beat an organized army of 500 sapiens coordinating complex strategies. Our ability to gossip, tell stories, and believe in myths is what allowed us to build cities, empires, and eventually the very internet you are using right now. So here we are, 100,000 years later. We are the undisputed kings of Earth. The giants are gone, the hobbits are gone, the muscular cave builders are gone. We outsmarted, outfought, and outbred every single sibling we had on the human family tree. But winning the game of evolution came with a terrible price. Today we are entirely alone. We are the only creature on this planet that has our level of consciousness. We spend billions of dollars building massive telescopes, pointing them at the dark, empty sky, desperately searching for alien life. We just want to know that someone else is out there. We just want someone to talk to. Maybe we are so obsessed with finding aliens in space because deep down in our DNA, we miss the brothers and sisters we left behind in the dirt. For 290,000 years, Earth was a family of humans. Then we learned to tell stories, we took over the world, and we've been lonely ever since.